Well, thank you, Sandra, Anna, and Andrea, so much for being here today to talk about your respective pre-health tracks. To get us started, our first question is, why did you pursue your specific healthcare track? So what kind of led you to this track, that type of thing?
I can go ahead and start since my mic is on. So coming into Emory, I was somewhere in between pre-med and pre-PA. And during my sophomore year, as I started to take prerequisites for both those programs, I realized that I wasn't nearly as passionate about bio and chemistry as I thought I was. During that time, I also had a little bit of a realization that providing one-on-one practitioner-patient care was also maybe not necessarily the thing that I was most passionate about either. And then also coinciding with that, I went to a panel that had a bunch of different health professionals, and I was exposed to epidemiology for the first time, and that made me really start digging into more about what public health looked like and what a career in that could be. I was really attracted to the idea of community healthcare, and so treating a whole community as opposed to individuals, and then really getting at root causes of diseases. And so that's kind of how I found public health and why I transitioned to that.
I can go ahead and talk about mine. So I don't know if I'm like a super usual case since I kind of wanted to do medicine pretty early on, since back in, I would say, middle school. But back then, I think I initially wanted to do nursing, um, and then kind of switched into more like advanced practitioner um, type wants. But I kind of always knew I didn't want to do med school. Um, Mainly because I was just like, residency sounds horrible. And I really didn't want to take the MCAT, which is kind of a stupid reason, but nonetheless. And I don't know, I wasn't in love with the track. But at the time, I really only knew about nurse practicing and didn't know about PA until high school. So I had kind of initially been thinking I was going to do nursing and then go into nurse practitioner school. Um, Learned about what a PA was in high school when I had to do a project on it. Um, and just kind of liked the schooling track better. I didn't want to have to do like nursing first and then MP. I kind of wanted to do a 4-year undergrad without having to kind of switch into a nursing program. And I was really into microbiology. That was my undergrad. So I kind of wanted to do a degree in that. Um, and I kind of liked more of the flexibility in terms of specialties and moving around in specialties as compared to NP, because to my knowledge, it's kind of they like if you're a pediatric, I'm not super well versed on NP, but like you choose pediatric or like family and you kind of I know some of them have more leeway with what they can do, but PA just kind of worked out with the track that I wanted to take. But yeah, I have always been interested in doing like patient on patient or patient on like patient interaction. Um, and I don't know, that's kind of it.
So I'll go. I'm Andrea, a nursing student. So for me, coming into Emory, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I took Portuguese classes, I took some business classes, but even then, like didn't have a sure, like set kind of path I wanted to follow. Um, I don't know. I think like maybe midway through my spring semester of freshman year, I kind of thought it to myself about like what I personally value the most. And I've always just been very dedicated to service and helping my community, being first generation low income student here, growing up in South Florida where there's many undocumented people. It's always been like a passion of mine to help serve my community. And nursing just seemed like a great way to be able to do that. So nursing, since being in the nursing school, it's been so supportive. There's been like a great set of faculty and people within my cohort who are just so well-rounded and just like amazing individuals, which just makes me feel so much more fulfilled in what I'm choosing. And then hopefully in the future, I'll be able to, work with marginalized populations and make a good impact.
Thank you. So the second question we wanted to follow up with is, what is something that surprised you, like being a student in your respective program? And what would you tell a student on their first day of class for your track?
I can go first again, if you guys are okay with that. So I think for me, what surprised me most is, well, no, let me share first what I would tell someone going into my program is keep an open mind. Similar to a pre-health journey as an undergrad, the graduate programs are still going to take you on a route of exploration, and especially diving into work that's more closely related to what you're going to be doing. You're really going to see what you enjoy the most and what you actually dislike, like in actuality, when you're actually doing the work. And so that leads me into what surprised me the most. So when I was going into my MPH program, I thought I was going to really enjoy program planning, and that program planning and evaluation was going to be my jam. I was dead set on that being kind of like what the rest of my career is going to end up looking like. And I realized that I absolutely hated the program planning classes. But in that, I also took epidemiology classes. I took a lot of qualitative and quantitative analysis classes, and I realized that a lot of that is stuff that actually I found way more interesting than I originally thought I was going to think it was. And that has really shaped what the future of my career is going to look like. So in all of that saying, just keep an open mind and know that grad school is really a time for you to continue to explore and continue to actually see what a career doing those things is going to be like. And it's okay if that changes the shape of what you thought your future was going to look like.
So my, I guess, surprising and I guess advice kind of go hand in hand. So to give a little background, in I'm pretty sure all PA programs, but don't quote me on that. First semester is anatomy. It's like your big class. And I was dreading it from like the get-go because I took anatomy in undergrad during COVID. So I was like, I feel like I don't have a good knowledge base. I feel like this is like the hardest class you're taking. And my advice to people, I feel like a lot of people say this, but I was a person who didn't believe it, even though I didn't technically take like I was very hesitant to believe this advice, but believe me, coming from somebody who is so nervous about anatomy, it's 100% true. Don't study. If you get into a PA program, don't study before like starting school. Like, don't. I know it's like you want to. You're like, I need to review my anatomy, or I need to review whatever, or else I'm not going to pass. That's my big advice. Don't study. Enjoy your time off before you start school. But my biggest surprise was that I enjoyed anatomy. And I enjoyed school a lot more in general than I thought I was going to. It at Emory, we have real cadaver lab, as I'm sure a lot of the other programs use the cadavers here as well. And it would not say it wasn't challenging, but it was a lot more fun than I was expecting. But that's definitely not everybody's experience with that. But yeah.
I think for me, it was definitely that I'd always heard that nursing school was like just really hard. And like it's just like very time consuming. And while that is true, the one thing that kind of surprised me was that because my cohort's 150 people, um, we move as a school of fish, you know? It's a shared feeling that like, oh, we have this exam or we have to do this group project. We all kind of work together and can communicate effectively to just help each other out. Um, so it almost becomes like a little family, and I'm really grateful that like I've been able to meet so many like amazing people, especially during clinicals when you're like in the hospital for 12 hours with like a group of people that you may not have known at the first week, but by the sixth week, you're very close to them. It's it's very rewarding, I would say, just like being able to work with patients, but also just learn about different people, different personalities, how to like best communicate for yourself and advocate for the patient. It's very it's a lot, but it's very rewarding, I think. And for me, the best like I guess way to go about it when going into nursing school is to find a group and find like people that will support you. And I'm so thankful that I have like a little group that I can just kind of vent to and also study with and do anything with. But yeah, that's kind of my experience.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Our next question is, how do you perceive your chosen track operating in like the broader healthcare setting? And this could also be kind of like, how do you perceive like where you fit into a healthcare situation?
I think for MPH at least, it's a little unique because there's not a defined role that kind of comes from having an MPH. So I think it's a lot broader where there's so many different trajectories that an MPH can do when it comes to a healthcare setting, whether it be research, whether it be there are MPHs that do work with patients. There are MPHs that do a lot of community work and a lot of like social advocacy and working for nonprofits. So I think for MPH, it's very, very broad. For me personally, I just look forward to being able to work within community settings and to help make problems better from the ground up.
Yeah, so for PA for me, I think in general, first to start, in terms of like a healthcare team, I feel like the way I was always kind of taught to think about it and how I personally think everybody should think about it is that it's like very team-based. Like nobody should be like better or whatnot than another person. Everybody on the team, whether it's nurses, physical therapy, dietitian, PA, MP, doctor, whatever, everybody has something to offer and knowledge to give in any setting. And that's just kind of how I view any team member, including PA. But I also will say for PA, it really depends on your specialty, kind of how much autonomy you'll have with your patients. Like surgical PAs are going to have less autonomy than solely clinical PAs in terms of like that kind of thing in a clinical setting. But in general, I think PAs are there to, see patients, diagnose, treat illnesses just like an MP or a doctor would. But part of the reason why I even picked PA is because you are able to kind of lean on a collaborating physician. And I think that kind of support is really nice to have. And you kind of have that person there that you can always talk to. Not that you can't talk to anybody on your team, but there is a certain amount, I guess, that you kind of need to understand your place in the setting. Like, you know, we're not MDs or DOs, but certainly, you know, we see patients, diagnose and treat. So yeah.
I think for nursing, fitting into the healthcare setting is definitely being the patient's advocate. That's like the golden rule, to just listen to your patient if they want to vent, be there to help and support them. And it's really about like patient-centered care, figuring out how to individualize the promotion of health and wellness for each and every patient. So whether that's education specific to the diagnosis, or providing resources like social services or spiritual services if someone's going through a hard time. And of course, like even like the basic amounts of like comfort. So if someone wants, the bed a certain way, or wants more sheets, or needs like the smallest thing, the nurse is kind of there to just make sure the patient feels as comfortable as possible in an environment that is unpredictable, where you can't sleep, and can be very traumatizing for people. So definitely just kind of looking out for them, and also being kind of the last line when, giving medications, and just making sure that communication all throughout each and every provider interprofessionally is like well-rounded.
Thank you. I really loved y'all responses and just hearing like the different perspectives and opinions based on your track. The next question we're gonna follow up with, and I think is like a big one we get from like a lot of undergrad students, is like, how do you balance your responsibilities of being a student with other parts of your life? I feel like a lot of students have this assumption, like once you start grad school, PA school, medical school, or nursing school, like your life is only school.
So I have a little bit of a unique perspective for mine because I did work full time and then go to school part time for my program. I would say while it was challenging and like there were sacrifices, like there were definitely times, especially like during finals, where I would have to make sacrifices and like, maybe cut back a little bit on my friend time. I know I just finished some of my final papers while on vacation in Miami. But it's a lot of balancing and using your time strategically. So I found that it worked out really well, but again, it's the kind of thing where you just have to make sure you're sticking with time management, really refining those skills. And yeah, that's, at least for me, it worked out.
Yeah, sorry, my cat's here. But for me, that was definitely something I worried about going into PA school. I even warned like all of my friends, because I'm from Atlanta. Hey, like you're probably not going to hear from me for like 2 years. Sorry. But honestly, and I will say everybody has a very different experience with this as well. There's plenty of people in my program that study way more than me, and people in my program who study less than me. So people are going to have variable experience with this, but in general, I have found it actually way easier than I was expecting, to be able to like have time for myself or other things in my life. But I think it's also because I already prioritized it before going to school. Um, but I definitely think it's also like a personal kind of experience. Like if the amount of if the amount that I was studying wasn't working for me, I would obviously have to increase my studying, spend less time or whatever, but spend less time, outside of school. But I just found what worked for me. And that luckily for me ended up being plenty of time for myself and my friends and family. But I think most people would find it surprising how easy it kind of can be. But I've definitely heard people say that sometimes you just kind of have to make time for it, even when you feel like there isn't time for it. But that's also because it's very important. Like, even if you feel like you don't have time, like if I take this day off, like I'm gonna fail, do it honestly, because your mental health in grad school is probably the pinnacle of whether you are going to be able to succeed. Because if you are down in the dumps, which honestly it probably will happen at some point or or the other, it can affect your schoolwork and studying way more than if you took a day off to spend with your friends and family. But in general, I feel like overall I've been surprised with my ability to have time outside of school.
Um, I think that's the same for me. This is known as one of the hardest semester of nursing school, just because you have pediatrics, which is like, it was a very intense, I would say like 7 weeks of peds, and then I have med surg, which is like going to adults. So like a lot of the information can just be contradictory because peds and adults is just very different. Um, and honestly, yeah, you just have to make time for yourself. It's something that I think, yeah, I've struggled with, but I just know like if I didn't take time for myself, I would feel so much more miserable if I were to study the next day and just kind of be like in this never-ending cycle of studying with like no breaks. Uh, so for me, it's always about prioritizing what is first. So blocking out the times like in my Google Calendar for clinical. So I know those 12 hours I can't do anything. Blocking out my classes and then specific other involvements. And, I use, what's it called? I use Notion for like task managing and making notes. And I'll use Anki to do memorization so that every day I can like kind of grind something out and keep it going. And then I do set like a bit of time for myself to, either go out and like eat something good or hang out with friends or just like be able to call my friends and family back home. Anything to just make me feel like I have some time to breathe. It's so important, and I think this is a great reminder that I should take some time for myself.
I echo all of that. Our last question to kind of wrap things up is going to be specifically at Emory. What support have you found, whether it's within your respective program or just from the school in general?
Yeah, so speaking to my MPH program, I think just all of the support from faculty and staff have made a world of difference to my experience in the program. I mean, similar to undergrad here, every professor there, is super well regarded, has so much incredible experience. And so I think the generosity of their time was something that, to me, even as someone who did undergrad here as well, was really surprising. And just their willingness to support their students, they put their students first. And just their willingness to like go above and beyond to get us involved in things that we may be interested in. So reaching out to them and going, hey, I'm actually really interested in their research, and their willingness to be like, okay, great, join my research. I think just aspects like that have been really mind-blowing and just a phenomenal resource to my program specifically.
Yeah, so I think you're probably going to be getting a lot of the faculty are amazing answers. But I mean, truly they are. I think I'll kind of say some things outside of that. Emory has like great resources like CAPS. I know there's a couple people in my program that use it, which, not to say it's like the most amazing therapy that you could ever get, but it's not bad and it's free. So There's things like that that can like make the biggest difference when you're having like a really low period, you know. But also in the PA program, I'm not sure if it's specifically, I don't know the details of like MD or like nursing program here, but we have what we call society, and like our entire class is split up into different societies. It's usually like maybe like 7 or 8 people in a society, something like that. And you have 2 faculty advisors that run your society for you. And they are really like your like go-to person if something's wrong or you need help with something, like they will do everything in their power to help you. And it's really nice to be able to, I guess, have like a closer relationship with 2 faculty, because obviously, you know, you get your lectures and stuff like that, but our society leaders are kind of like our people who know you really well. And I have really appreciated that about the program. But also like not even to say like our regular faculty, but our guest lecturers, the guest lecturers that they find to come and speak are amazing. And they're always so willing to like offer resources. Literally the other day we had a cardiology MD, a pediatric cardiology MD come and speak on, you know, congenital heart diseases. And he so willingly gave me like his business card for me to come like follow him. I don't know, people who come and present and are associated with Emory are very willing to share their knowledge and resources, which I have found to be incredibly helpful.
For me, I think within a nursing school, a great initiative is the NEST initiative. So it's the Nursing Excellence and Scholarship and Teaching, I believe. And it's basically EPAS. So like the Emory College of Arts and Sciences has EPAS, which, you know, they have tutors that you can meet like through office hours, both in person and online, I think, and then LAs for like, you know, chemistry that can do supplemental sessions. The NEST initiative is the nursing school's version of that. And I think it's a little bit more compact. We're able to get some SI or supplemental instruction sessions throughout the week with our graduate teaching fellows or GTFs, usually students who are in the MSN programs and are so knowledgeable. And they work closely with the professor. They go to, you know, the same classes or the class that they're teaching or helping teach, and they'll do the supplemental instruction and kind of figure out how to best help, you know, BSN students like myself. And if it wasn't for them, I would be lost because they're really just the sweetest people. And it's such a good opportunity to just go to office hours or go to, you know, GTF office hours, because there's so much that you can learn. Even if you don't have a question, you know, someone else might, and you'll be able to gain some knowledge. And it's really tricky to just like reach out sometimes, but once you do, it just opens up whole new opportunities to just increase your academic skills.
Thank you. Sorry. Thank you all for all your responses. I definitely think the answers you guys gave today are going to be helpful for students down the track. And we hope by like having this video posted to our YouTube and blog that students can like reference to it if they're interested in any of your programs. So
Thank
that's
you.
Thank you.
I'm gonna go ahead and stop there.
Yes, thank you.
yeah.